Now, Rob, this isn't just another missile defense upgrade, right?
Of course not. This is the future of warfare so that space-based sensors, artificial intelligence, hypersonic interceptors, and laser systems, and that's all fused together.
Firefly Aerospace IPO was valued at 10 billion. It raised 868 million and holds 1.1 in contract backlog. It's working the NASA CLPS mission to lunar South Pole, right? And that should be done in 2029. Axiom Space Investment, they just raised another $100 million, valuing the company at 2 billion, which is in the first throes of world's first commercial space station, right? And then lastly, just for some trends from the space capital perspective, the U.S. space industry is now having about 52% of private equity that's leading in the space market. So that's a big investment. That tells you that the money is where the moving towards there, Rob. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, those numbers really show that deep space is no longer sci-fi. It's really business at this point.
The FAA air traffic modernization push continues. The FAA continues accelerating next-gen air traffic modernization, prioritizing digital communication, automation tools, and staffing stabilization to improve system resilience and reduce delays, especially during peak travel season, which we're in right now. Right. Bottom line here, modernizing air traffic communications is no longer optional. It is essential.
Here's what's most important that people don't realize. Behind every takeoff and landing is a chain of paid services, proprietary networks, regulatory hardware, cybersecurity layers, and massive coordination between commercial, military, civil, and private operators. So in business terms, this ecosystem has three major value drivers: safety, efficiency, and cost avoidance, and then aerospace growth. And then safety is, that's ultimately non-negotiable. The regulators won't approve any system that can't reduce incident risk. From efficiency and cost avoidance, every 1% of improvement in routing efficiency saves airlines over, about $700 million annually in fuel costs. And then aerospace growth, the global air traffic is expected to double by 2040. So imagine that, more aircraft, more communications, more automation, more monitoring, more integration technology. And this is why aerospace primes, comms providers, and emerging autonomy companies are pouring more money into solutions like ADS-B, multi-layeration, and then aviation cellular networks, SATCOM, and real-time data platforms.
Yeah, so it's not just about safety. It's a real business behind it, right? And the revenue cycles are tied to global mobility, defense readiness, and commercial efficiency, right? And and what as a OEM or aerospace prime like say a Boeing or Airbus, they really are tracking all three of these to ensure that they, maximize revenue across the board. At its core, air traffic control, or ATC, is a layered system of humans supported by technologies. You got controllers who could juggle workloads, situational awareness, handoffs, radar inputs, weather, separation, standards, and all that happens in real time. And from a business standpoint, there's challenges, the staffing challenges matter, and we've all probably lived there, particularly this year, right? And when these short staff issues happen, which has been a recurring issue, right? Delays increase, upwards of 20 to 30%, even in some, massive points where we had, huge transfer flights, things like that happen. And that's hundreds of millions of dollars of value that's lost across not only airlines, but thousands of flight hours that's been lost even for military applications, right? And then you got the people piece of it, and the integration is another challenge. You got different radars, SDBs, ADSBs, voice switching, data links, and all that it has this thing called interoperability that must occur. And you need to keep that up to date, keep the upgrading, and that's consistently changing the radios out, looking at the avionics, working through the data links. What's the communication infrastructure backbone of each aircraft? And that can run, upwards of $300K per aircraft, depending on how massive the platform. So But the ROI in it is massive if you're able to mitigate these things along the way. And then and particularly if new technology comes in, new opportunities come in, we got, reducing the delays, improve the routing, and from a commercial standpoint, and then our defense operators don't have this thing called confliction, and you can easily deconflict what's happening in the aerospace from that point. At its core, right, a contract is a legal thermostat of a program, right? It is determines who carries what risks, what are the upsides, how changes are handled, how performance is judged. But in aerospace and defense, these decisions are not just financial; they ripple into the entire value stream, from engineering, procurement, testing, sustainment, and even administration, right? Like what kind of reports we need to give out.
From a firm fixed price standpoint, let's say the scenario is when you bid what you think it will cost and deliver to that price. But suppose an unexpected design challenge emerges midstream that you have to account for that cost. Who eats that cost, and that's going to be the actual contractor is going to eat that cost. Right. So that's great for the customer because they are just focused on predictable costs. But it's really dangerous for the contractor because in this high tech, high software, high uncertainty domains that are going on right now with AI and machine learning and all that, it's a lot of unpredictability in that cost that we want to move forward with.
Contract models are more than just legal plumbing, right? They shape engineering, margins, incentives, and risks, and you must match that model to the technical maturity, customer preferences, and what's happening in the program as a whole.
So really taking into consideration radiation protection. Once you leave Earth's magnetic shield, radiation becomes lethal over multi-year missions. So those cosmic rays, that solar particle events that can cause acute radiation sickness, organ damage, and increased cancer risk. So the current solution really is the polyethyl-based shielding. So in the spacecraft, and that's advanced composites and potential use of low lunar and the covered habitats. So it's really taking all into consideration, making sure that the humans and anyone else that are going into the atmosphere are protected. And then NASA is currently testing storm shelters inside Orion capsules as a near-term fix. From a futuristic standpoint, research is going into that magnetic shielding and plasma fields to mimic the Earth's atmosphere or magnetosphere.
Right. When you think about, we got radiation is just the one of the big drivers of of what happens in space, right? You got all these things you got to protect. Mm-hmm. The human body is not built for, right? And it's a cost driver to the business too, right? So that shielding alone adds weight, right? So weight is, as in any type of flight environment, weight costs money, right? Weight means you need more, you need better materials, you need things to be lighter, you need the shielding to happen. The storm shelters is that's tested out there, and they're already kind of used already on the space station out inside for Orion and other things. There's always a protective storm shelter type capability. Very, very expensive materials, but if you can solve this thing, right, it's not only help us from a technical perspective for people to stay out in space longer, it definitely helps, reduce the cost of going into deep space, which is one of those things, right?
So in deep space, you're minutes to hours away from Earth and communication delays. So I know you hear lags sometimes in video calls, things like that. But in deep space, you're minutes to hours and lags. For Mars, the one-way signal lag is up to 22 minutes. And then for a spacecraft need an AI-driven autonomy to make real-time decisions, whether it's rerouting power, fixing a malfunction, or conducting experiments, all that type of communication needs to be back and forth to NASA and home base, readily available and as quickly as possible. Artificial intelligence algorithms analyze trajectory, speed, threat level, and intent. And then they accomplish this, which they recommend which interceptors should engage.
And this is what we call the kill web, right?
Exactly. So not just a kill chain, but a web of nodes deciding what gets shot, when, and with what.
So how do we neutralize the threat?
I mean, it's multiple different options based on the altitude and speed. So THAAD, which is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, is great for exo-atmospheric interceptors. GPI, which is the Glide Phase Interceptor, is designed for maneuverable hypersonic threats. The Patriot PAC-3 MSE, so which is the Missile Segment Enhancement, handles those lower altitude ballistic missiles. SM-6, which is the Standard Missile 6, handles really the multi-role for aircraft, cruise missiles, and some ballistic targets. And high energy laser weapon system is for the drone swarms and that short range defense.
So we're talking satellites, interceptors, and lasers, all coordinated by AI, and of course with a human in the loop.
You got it right on the head. So that's all in under 60 seconds from launch detection to interception.
That's next level capability.